At COP28, we announced our targets, and including becoming net zero by 2050. And we have intermediate targets as well. So 2035 is a very important milestone for us.
Hello and welcome back to Energy Frontiers, and in this episode we explore the inner workings of Azerbaijan's state energy giant SOCAR amidst shifting market dynamics. We'll hear from the company's vice president Afgan Isayev about the path from fossil fuels to a more diversified energy future. But first, here's a quick overview of how SOCAR's story started.
In 1992, SOCAR was founded as Azerbaijan's national oil and gas company. Just 2 years later, and establishing a new pathway for foreign investment and energy diplomacy, SOCAR signed a groundbreaking production sharing agreement dubbed the Contract of the Century with 11 international oil majors. By 2006, the Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline was online, marking a new era of exports to the Mediterranean. And in the years that followed, SOCAR expanded its presence further to countries like Romania and Switzerland, whilst deepening regional ties with the launch of the Star refinery in Turkey by 2018. And in 2020, the Southern Gas Corridor began delivering Caspian gas to Europe. In recent times, SOCAR has voiced its long-term commitment to energy security, diversification and innovation. But as the global energy landscape shifts, how is it redefining its role to lead on decarbonisation and sustainable growth?
I'm delighted to say I'm joined now in studio by Afgan Isayev, the Vice President of SOCAR. It's wonderful to see you. Thank you for being here today.
It's a greatest pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Let me start by asking you about 2035. It's going to be a pivotal year for SOCAR because you have this marked as a transitional time to move from a hydrocarbon giant to a low-carbon energy player. Talk to me about some of the operational, technical, even financial challenges that stand in your way to reaching that milestone.
By 2035, we will have become a national energy company, and as you rightfully mentioned, not hydrocarbon company, but with a balanced portfolio. One of the major challenges that we face when it comes to actually development of the renewable energy sources here in Azerbaijan, the projects, is the limitations of the grid to intake the intermittent sources of energy. And that's why we need additional balancing power via the CCGTs, for example. We need battery energy storage solutions or combination of both. The second challenge that we face, of course, is the lack of access to open seas. Some of the infrastructure-related equipment, some of the equipment that we require for wind farms, for example, the blades can average in length 92, 94 meters, and bringing them here is quite a challenge. Hopefully, of course, we will be able to localize certain production in the future. Some of the infrastructure and equipment that we have is dating back to Soviet time. That is why, as a challenge number 3, is the decarbonization of the core activities themselves. We require massive investments in modernization of our operational processes. We require massive investments in digitalization.
You've mentioned the major investments that you're making, not least in upstream, but also export infrastructure is another key area. If we see peak demand for oil and gas tail off earlier than expected, and OPEC don't foresee this happening anytime before 2050, but should that happen, what is the risk? How great is the risk of stranded assets for SOCAR? And what are you doing to hedge against that possibility?
That's a very good question. Well, firstly, I need to state that we do agree with OPEC. Now, we have infrastructure in place. So as you know, pipelines, for example. We have a Southern Gas Corridor pipeline stretching from here till Italy. We have Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline from here to Mediterranean Sea. And we started to collaborate with very interesting partners, innovators. For example, we're looking at low carbon fuels, biomethane generation, for example. Number 2, we're looking at sustainable aviation fuels. Number 3, we're looking at synthetic methane. In addition to that, let's look at our petrochemical production. Whatever you touch has hydrocarbons in it. That is why we're more than confident that demand for petrochemicals will not subside.
Long-term offtake agreements are pivotal, critical to SOCAR's revenue security. In light of current recent developments in the market volatility, and of course changing consumer behaviour in Europe, are you therefore considering renegotiating any existing deals or restructuring new ones?
It's a good question as well. You're absolutely correct. Without long-term offtake agreements, projects with heavy infrastructure required financing, capex, wouldn't be able to exist or be developed. We can mention Southern Gas Corridor. We have long-term contracts on gas contracts, and that was instrumental for us to be able to attract the financing. Yes, of course, sometimes there are, based on the market dynamics, based on the type of the projects that you are in, you may be willing to sign the short-term or spot agreements. But at this stage, we're not in the process of renegotiating any contracts, offtake contracts.
Can you give me any indication as to an IPO? Is it on the cards? Is it being discussed? Are we likely to have an announcement anytime soon?
Very interesting question. To the best of my knowledge, no. However, we do divest certain assets. Like, for example, last year we sold 5% in Chardonnay to MVM Energy Company, one of the global players in the energy market. As a second example, when it comes to divestment, we have Absheron gas field where SOCAR and Total Energy were the shareholders. So in 2023, Total and SOCAR divested certain parts to Abu Dhabi National Oil Company.
Divestments are one thing, but bolt-ons and acquisitions are another. You've been acquisitive in recent times. Is there anything else in the pipeline?
Last year, we were able to acquire a certain portion of gas field in UAE. This year, we were able to complete the transaction and acquire the shares in Tamar gas field in East Mediterranean, which is also a very important strategy for our development abroad. And of course, if the opportunities present themselves, if they are mutually beneficial, of course, we will consider the further acquisitions.
Well, we very much hope that we'll be the first to know.
Definitely. I would love to come back on the show.
You're welcome anytime. Thank you so much for talking to me today.
It was a greatest pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you. Well, that wraps up this episode of Energy Frontiers, brought to you from our studio in Baku, Azerbaijan. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.